Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is all about collecting versus investing. Now, question for everyone, where would you position yourself if it was on some sort of a spectrum with collector slash investor on one end? Where would you position yourself? Are you more of a collector or are you more of an investor? Now, today's video, I'm going to explore the topic, and I suppose I'm almost going to feel like I'm back at college here, presenting some sort of argument around collecting versus investing and coming to some sort of consensus at the end. So without further ado, let's get stuck right into it. So I suppose from a Pokemon collecting standpoint, you could say for a lot of people, it's almost above a hobby. It's a passion, and it becomes almost a reflection of some sort of personality, or at the very least, some sort of personal taste in both the sealed products they buy or the single products they buy. Now, on the other hand, on the other end of the spectrum, if we look at it solely from an investment standpoint, there's none of that personality or taste that comes into it. It's solely based off an expectation that a sealed product or a single product, so a card, will go up over time, that the market will revalue it and it'll be hopefully worth more in time. And you don't care what product or what card you buy, it's solely bought from an investment standpoint to make you money. Now, that's a pretty big difference. Now, when it comes to Pokemon card investing, you could argue it's a bit of a one-of-a-kind way to invest. I suppose like some other collectibles, whether it's wine or artwork or stamps or whatever it might be. You get like tangible, collectible items. So some investors would argue that it's much more gratifying, I guess, to invest in something like trading cards than it is on the stock markets, because you can look at it, it's tangible. There's something nice about having it stored away, so to speak. When it comes to different Pokemon investments, so to speak, there's also a bunch of different strategies that come into play. Whether people buy collections and then grade those and then sell them to make a profit, whether people, glad these sort of people are gone, buy up with bots all the products online and resell at a higher price when, you know, we had crazy periods like COVID where stock supply was at such a shortage and demand was at such a high that you could do those sort of things. Whether it's people that sit on a product and hold it really long term and then enjoy it while it's there and make a profit at the end of it. But anyway, I suppose you can see a clear difference or distinction between someone that collects something for the sheer enjoyment and puts some of their own flavor and passion into it, or someone that invests in something which has the clear focus with different strategies on trying to make money. This brings about another question before we even get to answering, what's better, collecting or investing? And that is, why do people even collect? I can remember seeing something years ago. I think it might have even been in a sociology class back in college or uni or wherever it might have been. But it was basically, there's lots of different arguments, I guess, to why people collect. But this one just stood out to me, which is, back when I suppose resources were so scarce, as in if you sort of put on your evolutionary hat and go back to caveman days, for lack of a better word, this idea that resources were scarce and, not many people had stuff, particularly valuable things. So, collecting things almost feels like it spans from the dawn of time, keeping something, collecting it, having it there, whether it's a prized, and again, I almost feel like I'm talking rubbish, but caveman days, whether it's a prized tooth from a predator that you've killed or whatever it might be, some rare shells or gemstones, something that you could give to your partner or wife or kids. Like it feels like that whole collecting has been around forever and a day. But all of a sudden, it seems to have gone to massive new heights. There's, I guess, it's almost you can't have one without the other. You certainly, I don't think, can have an investor without a collector. It's like there's this weird intertwined relationship between collector and investor, because if you're an investor, who's going to buy the stuff when you sell it? I mean, it can get in this investment spiral where another investor buys it because they think it's going to go up and then later sells it to another investor because they think it's going to go up. But more often than not, it's probably somewhat a collector, or mostly a collector that's going to buy it. As in, if someone wants a sealed booster box collection and the only thing they're missing is Steam Siege, which we all know, you could open probably 5 booster boxes of Steam Siege, and you're probably not even going to be able to pull the contents combined, value-wise, worth of one sealed booster box, because the cards inside it just have very little to no value, other than, what is there, the Secret Rare, Gardevoir, Volcanion, which aren't awful-looking cards, but not the best, and they don't hold a great deal of value. My point is that, you know, if you want to go back in time and buy this box, you're going to have to pay, what is it now? I haven't even looked. Probably 400 US, 350 US, 400, 450 US, 500. I don't know. You're going to have to pay 4 or 5 times, probably 5 times what its market price was years ago, just to say that you've got that in your collection. So that weird intertwined relationship between collector and investor, particularly investor, it's almost like investors don't have, particularly long-term ones, a foot in the door unless there's collectors around. And when it comes to that collecting side of things, and it's setting all sorts of new heights lately, like here's one, this sold back in, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, but a sculpture, Rabbit, 1986 sculpture, so not an old sculpture, sold for $91.1 million. And I don't know about you, but God knows how that happened. So that this whole collecting artwork, even this whole idea behind NFTs, that so-called digital artwork, which seems to have somewhat fallen by the wayside. I haven't heard much of it lately, but you know, it begs the question, how far can it go and what's the height of the ceiling? Like Logan Paul, Pikachu, Illustrator comes to mind. Base set, booster box, case, first edition, which ended up being fake, comes to mind. There's people that are willing to spend big dollars, just like there's whales, for lack of a better word, in other collectible industries, be it sports cards, which have a bit more history behind them, or comic books, or antique furniture, or rare pieces of artwork. There's whales in the industries that will always pay big dollars to get things. So where's the ceiling for Pokemon when it comes to a collectible / investment? I'm not sure. I suppose when it comes from an investor, let's focus a little bit more on the investment side for a second. Most financial planners would tell you it's not a smart move to invest in collectibles, whether it be antique furniture or vintage wines. Like most people would say, that is a fairly risky investment, and they would probably call it something speculative, like it would be a speculative investment. If it goes up, well and good, but don't bank on it because the markets are pretty unknown. So the general rule of thumb is, I reckon if you went into any financial planner and said, hey, look, I've got, I'm worth, and I'm just making up numbers here, not me personally, but anyone. Someone walks in, a random, and goes, I'm worth $500,000. I've got lots of equity in my house. I've withdrawn from the home loan, and I want to spend $100,000 US on Pokemon cards as an investment. Most of them would tell you you're absolutely mad. Now, if you'd bought $100,000 of Team Up booster boxes 4 years ago, you'd be laughing all the way to the bank. But my point is, most financial planners would tell you that collectibles are a fairly unknown and volatile market. And the point is, most would say maybe put 5% of your net worth towards investables. So if you had a $100,000 portfolio of various different investments, what does that equate to? 5%. That's $5,000, isn't it? Yeah, $5,000. 5% of 100,000 is $5,000, which gives you an okay collection. That's a few nice booster boxes. That's a whole set of Sword and Shield boxes. That might be one Plasma Storm booster box or Plasma Blast booster box. So 5%. However, if you've got $4 million net worth, your collection could be quite good. So there's no point. There's no harm in putting 5% if it's just speculative. So here's another point I wanted to touch on. Reducing Pokemon cards to a transaction, does it just miss the point? And I guess this is another little question inside the whole argument. And it's a hard one to answer in itself. Like, does reducing Pokemon cards to a transaction miss the whole point? Because from an investment standpoint, you almost get this rational investment argument versus passion to collect argument. Like, from a rational, objective perspective, investing in Pokemon cards with a portion of your net worth, so to speak, or a portion of your investment fund isn't bad. Like, it's a channel that can sort of, it's almost protected, for lack of a better word, against inflation and unstable economies and market breakdowns and currency fluctuations, while simultaneously, I guess, in some cases, producing some effective returns and having something great to look at, compared to the whole notion that, it's just a passion of yours to collect something and buy what you want and look at it. And this is a funny one, because when Knight Frank and these do a few wealth and asset reports, I believe, in the US, they ranked as number one, this is for collectible investments, the number one sort of indicator from investors wasn't about the capital appreciation that they got from having a collectible investment, whether it's wineries or antique watches like Rolexes or collectible cards like Pokemon. It wasn't the capital appreciation. It wasn't the fact that they could diversify their portfolio and have different assets. It wasn't the fact that it's, like I said, almost like a financial haven protected from currency fluctuations. The number one ranking was the joy of ownership. They just enjoyed having it as part of their collection. So collectibles are a funny one as a whole, right? Because there's been heaps, like there's lots of them, different, and it seems to be almost a luxury to invest in collectibles, so to speak, and different things like I said, wines or luxury watches. Like, I've got a guy that I work with in a more senior position than I am, so probably earns more money than what I do. But he loves collecting watches, whether it's Patek Philippe's or Rolexes, and he says 5 years ago this watch's market price was this, and now it's this. So but for him it would be hard to sell them, and it's the same thing with Pokemon cards for me. Like, okay, Cosmic Eclipse booster box. I paid, this is in Australian dollars, $380 for it, which is about, at the time, 210, 220 US. And now I see them selling, not list price, but selling on eBay for 14 to 1500 Australian dollars. In the space of 2.5 years that I've owned that booster box, its capital appreciation is massive. Now, yes, there's going to be fees if I try and sell it, but still, its capital appreciation is massive. But it's going to be so damn hard for me to let go of that box. And that brings about the whole conclusion of this whole argument of collecting versus investing. From my standpoint, you shouldn't, and this is my summary, based on the fact that if anyone asked me to sell something, like sell your Unified Minds booster box for 1,200 Australian dollars, which is, I don't know, 650, 700 US, whatever up to now, 800 US, I'm not 100% sure, but if someone asked me to sell it for that price, I'd have a real battle. And the reason is because of that joy of ownership. So to summarize it all, you shouldn't just do it purely from a money-making standpoint. If you love Pokemon cards, you should collect products or cards that you enjoy looking at. Passion should lead the purchase, and investment will come as a perk. I guess that's a summary of it for me. What are your thoughts? Leave them down below. Do you think, or are you more of an investor over a collector? Is that all you care about? Which is fine. Don't get me wrong, it's perfectly fine. Like, it makes sense to use it as a vehicle to make money. People use so many vehicles as channels to make money. So that's fine. Or do you see yourself more as a collector? Well, I guess that just about sums up the video for me. I think you should let your passion and what you like as a sealed product or a single card flow through and buy it. And if there's some sort of financial gain that comes in the long term, which there should be, mind you, I'm not saying I'm not in it to include or increase the value of my portfolio, because that's the part of the fun of it for me. I certainly am. But I do like collecting what I like to collect. So anyway, that sums it up. Leave me some comments down below. I'm Michael. This is Poke Oz, and I'll catch everyone next time.